Well, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate any opportunity to talk about inclusive post-secondary education in Oklahoma. That's kind of my jam. So just a real quick introduction. I am Julie Lackey. I am director of the Oklahoma Inclusive Post-Secondary Education Alliance. Shorten that down to OKIPSE because that's way easier on the tongue. And so I am first a parent, and so we have a son who's 24. He happens to have autism spectrum disorder, and along about 8th grade, we were looking at options for him, and our assumption was he would go to college because my husband and I did, and he was interested in the things that college education can provide. And we went to his IEP meeting, and they were lovely, awesome people, and it was a very sort of a pleasant smile type of a situation. No negativity, but just that's nice that you think that. And so when I dug into that further, I actually found that my son would not be able to be successful in a college setting unless he had the types of supports that he had always had through his IEP and K through 12, because he'd been very, very successful with that situation. However, as I looked at college and what college would allow and provide, that is a very different model on what supports are provided. And so I thought, okay, this is silly. There has to be something that would allow my son to be successful, just like he always has been through a great IEP. And so very long story short, I connected with industry experts. I traveled into different states to visit programs, and I connected with folks that had done a lot more than I ever had in this subject, and picked up some new mentors, picked up a mission, basically. I'm so sorry. And so a mission was born after I came back from that, what I call my research phase, which was about a year. And so what I found out was that there were programs all over the nation. At that time, this was 2012, there were about 160 programs and in 40 some odd states. And so I thought, okay, you know what, it doesn't make sense that us and families like us would send our children, young adults, with intellectual developmental disabilities out of state. That didn't make sense to me. So we started marshaling the forces basically and formed a nonprofit. That nonprofit was called Lead, Learn, Live, is called Lead, Learn, Live. I'm the founder and executive director of that nonprofit. And that nonprofit went into action, raised funding, and partnered with Northeastern State University to begin the first inclusive post-secondary education program in Oklahoma. We just had our first graduates in May. It's awesome. And then Lead, Learn, Live went into action again, raised the funding, prepared the outline, and are doing the same consulting qualities that we did with in SU for OSU. And that program is called the Opportunity Orange Scholars Program, and that starts this fall. So as we sit here, it's July 2022, and we have a lot of good things going on. So all of that work and all of that to say that that was a 10-year body of work. And through that, and through the contacts and through the learning, we knew that best practice in other states that had multiple programs was to have an alliance or a consortium. They called different things depending on different states. And so we formed the Oklahoma Inclusive Post-Secondary Education Alliance, and I'm director of that. That alliance is a partnership between Department of Rehabilitation Services, Sooner Success, and Department of Education, Special Education. So very happy and thankful for those partners and love my job. So what I'd like to do is I would like to share my screen and walk you guys through a presentation, so you have a little bit better idea of what OKIPSE is. And so can everyone see that? Okay, great. great. All right, so OKIPSE Alliance. Again, just very happy to be here to talk through this. So what is IPSE? Okay, what is that about? What's in the name? Well, so inclusive post-secondary education, for what we're going to talk about today, is very much related to comprehensive programs at institutions of higher education. A lot of folks use post-secondary education to cover a lot of bases, and it does cover a lot of bases, okay? But inclusive post-secondary ed for the OKIPSE Alliance is really focused on programs that are in institutions of higher ed. They are inclusive. What that means is those students have full access to everything any other student has access to. It is not programming that exists on a campus, but has students sort of stay in a group and move around that campus. That is not what it is. It is not something that's very limited in nature. These students are truly students on a college campus. Post-secondary means after high school. Right now, the models that we have going on are for high school graduates. So that's after high school. That is an adult learner. There are some wonderful co-enrollment things going on. We don't have that in place yet. So what we're talking about right now is after high school as an adult learner, which is a significant difference between being a K through 12 learner. Education, if a student wants to go to college, they want to learn. They want to have an education. They want to continue that education. What is unique about these programs is that they are education in life. You know, it's not just academics. It's independent living, and it is social skills, and it is employment. It's so much more than education. But education is the primary component because these programs are on college campuses. So there are expectations that student is going to do work. They are going to have homework. Oh my gosh, they're going to take tests. You know, they're going to have to keep up a grade point average. I mean, it is meaningful. It is not just okay, you're auditing a course, just kind of do your best. It's not about that. It's about students that really want to learn. They really want to focus on something. They really want to grow. And so that is what IPSE is all about. And why do we do what we do is really the outcome. It's a quality of life that is improved for students that attend these programs. These programs are absolutely data-driven now to enhance independence, to really ramp up that community engagement, and the employment is just crazy good, those outcomes. And so we're all about the outcome improvement. And it's really not just the student that attend the programs. That is a ripple effect that goes to the families and goes to the community, because when those students are engaged in life, have a job, you know, and living life fully, then that really helps the parents, as us parents know, and that also helps the community because they're getting really diverse workers as well. So statistically speaking, Oklahoma Works has out there, and this statistic is very stable, 70% of Oklahoma jobs will require more education than high school beyond 2025. And we're already seeing that. You know, the pandemic has also impacted that. And 2025, guys, is just around the corner. Really goes fast, as we all know. After high school, I used to say this is my presentation because it really is. On a national average, about 35% of individuals with disabilities have employment. And that is employment with a little e. It means a sheltered workshop. It means 10 hours a week. It means 20 hours, 40 hours a week. That's everything, right? That's an average. Depending on who you talk to in Oklahoma, that number typically is more like 18 to 24%. It just depends, but I use statistics that are backed up by national standards. So 35% is generous, okay? But students with IDD that complete an IPSE program, that number on a national average is 64% and above. That is a rock solid statistic. It is absolutely a life changer. And that is competitive employment. That means employment that pays the bills. That means employment that has a career path. It means employment that those students have gone to school for, right? And so this really is why we do what we do. It is all about quality of life. And so what does Oklahoma look like? Well, right now, you heard me talk about what Lead, Learn, Live funded, the startup funding for Northeastern State and Oklahoma State. University of Oklahoma started Sooner Works the year after NSU, 2019, which is awesome. And University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma has an autism support program. That is a degree seeking program. And so we're going to talk just a little bit about these four and then talk in more specifics about the programs, what they provided. So NSU and OU, Sooner Works, Riverhawk Scholar Program, both very, very similar programs. They are 4-year certificate programs. They are not degree programs. They are for students with intellectual developmental disabilities. They are for students that are more mildly affected by their disability. They are there because they are interested in learning, interested in growing. They may want a really large university experience, which is OU, right? With all of the things that come with a huge campus. They may want a small campus that is, more hands-on and just smaller in nature, which is NSU. So that it's great that we have those choices. They are amazing programs. Oklahoma State University, it was important for Lead, Learn, Live to start a model that focused on students that were more moderately affected by their disability. So these are students that need more supports. And that program is a 2-year program for students with IDD. And there is a 2-year advanced opportunity available. And so a little bit different program, a little bit different focus on the population, and we got more opportunity for more students with IDD is the main thing. USAO in Chickasha is a degree seeking program that is a 4-year program, and that's for students that absolutely can do all the academic work, and they are about getting a degree, and they are for students with high functioning autism. And so it's lovely that I sit here today. Oh my gosh, this slide always makes me smile because we have choice. We have choice for students, and this is just the beginning. So exciting that we have choice. And so what does this mean, an inclusive program? What does that have in it? Well, we call them pillars, okay? And so the programs in Oklahoma so far are excellent. They have these pillars, and I put up NSU as an example. So when I speak in terms of certain terminology that may be specific to what NSU calls, like mentors, for instance, well, at another program, it may be called peer partners. It may be called, assistants. It may be called different things, but the basics are there. The 4 pillars are independent living, social skills, academics, and career development. And so what does that mean? Well, students are students, just like I said first. Independent living means they are living in a dorm. They have roommates. They have suite mates. They have to learn to get up. They have to learn to get along. They have to learn how not to get along, which I always say is just as important as getting along. These are things that they need more direct instruction in, and that's just fine. Where maybe you or I would be able to be kind of pointed to a laundry room and said, there you go, that's where the laundry happens. Well, these students may need to be shown more than once. They may be shown 2, 5, a dozen times. That's okay. Because you know what? They still learn it. They just need a little more help. And so there are trained RAs, our assistants living close by, that are there to check on the students, help them, just learn that independent living piece, make sure at the beginning of the program that students are learning how to get up, get themselves dressed, get out the door, all the things that they may need a little more assistance with. Social skills are very, very important for students with IDD, and actually any student. Social skills is so important. The students have social and fitness mentors of some type. So they hang out, they go to different events and activities, and you know what? They're just a friend. They go to clubs and organizations. Students need to join clubs and organizations because they have to flex that social skill, right? And so it's very important that those students are involved in clubs and organizations, because if they're not, that's a very, very big piece of living in the world, that they're not getting that support and learning that. So those social skills are very much part of the program. Academics, like we said, if you want to go to college, you're wanting to learn. And so students are taking catalog courses with a mixture of some program support courses. They do have education coaches. Some people call them tutors. So those students have the support they need to be able to do their work. It is a certificate program. Again, it's not a degree program that we're talking about here, but the students still are doing the work. Just like we said, they're still doing the homework, they're still taking tests, they're still doing the coursework, and they are doing as much as they can do. They are having expectations to do their best. The program staff is working with these students all along with the umbrella, I like to say, of a person-centered plan, because every student comes into these programs with a different dream, a different goal. And so that person-centered plan is what governs how each one of these 4 pillars is tracking. And so the person-centered plan might be that that student comes in and thinks they want to do astronomy. And so if all of a sudden they're wanting to take classes in forensic science, well, there's a little bit of disconnect there, right? So that person-centered plan is revisited, and that student is talked to, and that student is worked with to say, okay, where do you want to be? How's this going? And so the classes are all about getting that student to where they want to be, to have the kind of job they want to have when they complete the program. And so that person-centered plan is such a big part of that. The program courses that the students take are focused on things that the students in the programs need more direct instruction on. It may be making healthy choices. It may be relationships. It may be budgeting, you know, at their level. It may be a variety of things that the program courses really focus on, that direct help. Later down the line, it goes into employment skills as well. And so that brings us to that 4th piece, which is career development. And so the programs have a mixture of on-campus, moving to off-campus paid internships. That paid piece is really, really critical. We have a partnership in place with DRS that we'll talk about in a minute, but that allows Oklahoma students that are VR clients, which they all should be, just a little plug to please enroll with VR, that those students get paid for their internships. And so they get a paycheck and they learn what to do with a paycheck. They learn that you can save it and use it for whatever you want to. They also learn that you can't buy a $200 set of earpods and then have any money left over for the rest of the month, right? So it's all real-time learning on what to do with the paycheck. And that career development, again, is tracking with that person-centered plan. If a student comes in and they think, okay, I want to do this, and the internships are kind of set up for that, that student might think, you know what, I don't like that. No, I don't want to do that after all. And that's okay, because anybody, as they go through life, they can change their mind, especially in those college years. And so these students are no different. They just need the support to kind of help them figure out what they want to do. And so that internship is such a big part of the student kind of finding what they want to do. And as that gets kind of tuned through their years of the program, they get better and better at those skills. And so career development is such a big piece of that, you know, that earlier piece that we saw, that community engagement, independent living, career development, that all goes together with employment. So supporting students, that is so important. You know, college is expensive. It's expensive whether you are a whatever a neurotypical person is going to college, and it is expensive if you are a student with IDD. And so the Alliance is really working on how can we support students to be able to afford these programs. And the goal here is following the model that other states have done called braided funding. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get, you know, a piece over here and a piece over here and a piece over here, put all these things together. So by the time you put them together and get things in place, we're hoping that much of the cost of these programs can be paid for. And so some examples of those things are, number one is a CTP designation. What that is that's a comprehensive transition program. And that's a federal designation that the programs apply. They turn in a lot of information. And once they get that designation, students in the program can apply for federal aid just like any other student can. They are not the loans, because loans would saddle these students with money and a requirement they don't need. But any of the grants, they are available for these students with a CTP designation. I'm so excited that NSU and OU have their CTP, and OSU is just waiting on the final, yes, here's your CTP. So all of our programs really will have that CTP, and that's very, very important. All right, DRS, VR, so Department of Rehabilitation Services, Vocational Rehabilitation, they came to the table. We were able to facilitate a pilot that started with NSU that's now for all of the programs for students with IDD, that they pay up to $3,000 per semester, and they pay for the internships. And that is such a huge deal, because that's one piece of that braid, okay? CTP and the availability of Pell Grants, that's a braid. DRS VR, that's a braid. We're working, been talking with DHS, DDS, talks in place to use for students that are on the Medicaid waiver, to be able to use that waiver, or part of that waiver, to help pay for college programs. That's another braid. And so we're feeling very positive about that. We don't have any final word that that's approved, but there is a pilot that's being talked about. And much like DRS started with the pilot, we're very excited, because I'm feeling so good about that getting started really quickly. Scholarships. Okay, anyone that's hearing this, if you know someone that is open to providing a scholarship to a student, that would be fantastic. We are working at the state level to have the goal of opening up scholarships that the state has to students in these CTP programs. Right now, scholarship language is written for credit bearing or degree seeking. And depending on the language, what it does is it leaves out these students that are attending programs that are certificate programs. So we're working to expand scholarships to also include students in these programs. But the private opportunities also make up another one of those braids. And so, you know, for instance, we've had some organizations that have said, you know what, I think we're going to look at a scholarship. And so if we get enough organizations, maybe just do one scholarship for one student, you know, that can really offset a lot. And so anyone that has that knowledge or connection, please let me know, because we're really wanting to encourage scholarships. And private pay, you know, stable accounts. If you want to save and are able to save, stable accounts help families save, and it doesn't impact their benefits. That's very, very important. Self-pay is part of it, right? We go to college and we have a little bit of ownership in that. So self-pay is part of it. Right now, it is mostly self-pay. We're trying to get that braid together to help offset costs and support students. So that's very, very important, and we're working on it. All right, student preparation, big, big subject. So I have a training just about this, but student preparation is such a big part, right? And it does not start in 8th grade transition meeting as it did with us, okay? It really starts in elementary school, and it goes mid-high and high school. It travels, the whole length of time there, because the sooner that families start thinking that's a possibility, and you guys, these are new, and I get it, everyone that's in high school now, nobody's saved, because we didn't have these in Oklahoma, right? And so very few people were able to save, and didn't know that there was anything to save for. But going back and starting in 4th and 5th grade and saying, you know what, let's talk about this concept of college. Those kids don't know anything about that. But if you just start introducing, well, oh, do you like being a teacher? You really like your teacher and you think you'd like to do that? Because kids will do that. They will say, well, I want to be a teacher. I want, they start having that conceptual thought process in the older elementary school ages. Well, start connecting those thoughts to college, because, starting early with just tiny bits of information on college and what that means and how those things connect really do make a difference. Going into mid-high, same thing, things get a little bit more concrete. High school, same thing. And so on that IEP, start thinking about, okay, is college a goal? And nobody knows if that's going to be what that child ends up wanting to do for sure, but don't discount it. So always have that in the back of your mind in the IEP planning process, that college may be a goal. And so what things go into that to make that work? Because that IEP is so important, the curriculum, access to gen ed curriculum as much as possible. That's important, so maybe there's a plan, and starting very young, maybe the goal is by the time they're in high school, they're in as many gen ed classes as possible. And so accessing that gen ed curriculum to help them academically just get in the groove of that possibility. ADL, activities of daily living, very, very important. And so that's, that is just being responsible, doing chores, being able to do what they're asked to do in the home, hygiene, all the things that we don't think about, in little subcontext really does matter with the goal of going to college. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But activities, daily living, that also is at school, washing hands. I mean, just real basic things that really do matter. Getting these kids in the groove early is just so much better for them later on. And skills that are classroom related skills. You've got ADL, which is sort of life out of class, maybe in the school system, like the hygiene, right? But skills in a classroom, organization, maybe that student is slowly working on just keeping their binder organized. And then maybe it's putting papers in a particular place and really making sure that student is doing that. Maybe it is cleaning out their locker on a regular basis. Just little bits and pieces of just everyday life, that skills can be supported both at home and also in the classroom. Mostly related to classroom function is really important. And all of those things go together with the goal of college, okay? And so student preparation is so important. So our son is on the autism spectrum. The word college has no meaning, okay? Not in the early years. College was just a word. And so when you're able then to take that student to a campus and walk them around and go in the dorm and show them what a dorm is, show them what a college classroom is, show them a campus, those words have to have some meaning. And so students with IDD typically are very hands-on learners. And so, making sure those students are on the field trips to college campuses, you know, in high school. That's important. Taking a field trip as a family, starting younger, to just go walk around a campus in the summer when school is not in session. There's nobody there, and you can walk around and really get a feel for it and have not so many people, right? So that desire and motivation for something called college, you have to give them the reason to know what that is, right? And so being able to concretely show what a college campus is and what does college mean is very important. So the future is something that needs to be talked about, needs to be talked about at school. IEP teachers, special education teachers, and regular general education teachers in the classroom. These students are included in the future and choice. And so universities visit them. Open houses, all of these programs have open houses. And so attend them. You know, it doesn't matter what age, you can start as soon as you think your student is interested, and attend them. You know, have the students start getting their head around it, because you know, I've been to so many open houses over the years, and what's always fascinating to me is that, so you'll have this big room and they're full of all these families and all the kids are there, and you know, they have all the different departments presentations and talking about the campus and the college and the program in general. But then there's always a student panel. And that student panel, whereas all those students that are sitting there with their families are kind of going like this, you know, this is so boring. When that student panel, oh my gosh, those kids snap to attention, because all of a sudden those kids look like me. You know, oh, those kids are in college. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that anyone like me could be in college, and they look like me. They act like me. They have my stuff, you know? And so the questions that those students ask them, and hearing the student panel's answer, and, you know, they're just the best things ever, because, you know, questions that come from the students, some of my favorites have been, well, were you scared when you started, or was it scary to you? And, you know, those students answer so beautifully and so genuinely about, yeah, I was, but you know, it's okay. Or this is what happened at first. And you know, the answers are not scripted. Okay. I mean, the students might say, you know, I was really lonely at first. It was hard to get used to it. I missed my dog. I missed my family, you know, but then I really got used to it and I really love it. And now I hardly ever go home. I mean, you know, you listen to the students telling their story, and that's what you get at open houses. So I can't emphasize that enough. And compare the programs. So you saw the options we have in Oklahoma. There are options. There's over 312 well, I think 312 is the number as it stands right now, programs in the nation right now. And so compare them. You can go to our website, and our website has the Oklahoma programs and the links that go directly to all the programs. thinkcollege.net is the national clearinghouse for these programs. And you can go to that website and you can see all 312. So you can really start getting a feel for what different programs offer, how much they are, how they're structured, where they are. Because I mean, as much as there are 312 programs, there are 312 differences, right? And so every director of every program will tell you that they want the right fit. They want that student to feel like, yes, this is where I belong, you know, and maybe if it's not NSU, maybe it's OU, and maybe if it's not OSU, maybe it's NSU, right? And so not just attending one open house and call it good, but attend the open houses to all the different programs and see what's a good fit. All right, I'm staying on student preparation still. So I love this picture. This is a young lady. I have her permission to use her picture. And I've known her mom for decades, okay? And so I met with her for lunch when this young lady was in 7th grade. And I said, hey, how's it going? How's she doing? And she said, oh my gosh, she's great. You know, she's a leader. She was predominantly in a self-contained classroom, except for specials at that time at her electives. And she was the leader. She was helping others. She loved it. I mean, she was a natural born teacher, you know, and she just loved everything about it. And I said, you know, I want you to think about slowly moving her out to gen ed classes. And she said, well, but she's doing so well, you know. And I said, you know, but think about the future, okay? Just think about it. Talk to the team. See about slowly adding one general education class a year, because you've got, you know, 4 years. And if things go well, it's possible that she would be in all gen ed classes by the time she's a senior. And if not, okay, at least she tried. And that was interesting conversation, because, you know, she was doing so well, and she was in her special education groove. But you know what? That wasn't going to serve her long term. And so that mom did just that. She started her in gen ed classes. And by the time she graduated, she was in all regular classes. And that picture was a snippet from the video of her opening her acceptance letter to be accepted at an OKIPSE program. So she is going to college in the fall. And so that just shows you that, you know, all the things that we just talked about, you know, the working towards the possibility of a goal is so important. I will tell you that no one would have probably looked at our son in 5th and 6th grade and thought, oh, you know what, he's going to go to college, because those were rough years. Okay. But he is in college, and he's even transferred to a different college to find his passion. And so just like this young lady, you don't know, guys. I just want to really push you to think in terms of hope, okay? Because you just don't know. You can't write their story, and you can't write the chapters in the story. And some of those chapters are going to be rough, and some of them are going to be great, but you just don't know. So just think in terms of the possibility, because there is possibility. And so student preparation, some of the things that we just talked about, ideas that could be part of the IEP goals and future planning, are things that are very, very beneficial to students in a program. Okay. Can they use a smartphone? And it's like, well, everyone has a phone. Well, that's not true. I've talked to directors that have had students that have been accepted, but with the caveat that they have got to have a smartphone and learn to use it by the time they start, because some parents are very worried and with trepidation about having students with IDD have a smartphone. Well, there are wonderful, all kinds of filters and things that can be part of a smartphone use, okay? So use a smartphone. Can they take their medications independently? These programs do not supply nursing help. And so training and helping your child to slowly learn how to do their medications is a very good thing. We started that very early on with our son, and he is so incredibly strict about it because he made a mistake a couple times, and that taught him very quickly. Okay. And so taking medications independently, personal hygiene. I love the story that one of our directors told me that they had a student, and you know, the application process for these programs is an application, and it's also an interview. Okay, so it's kind of a two-part thing, and that's typical for all the programs. And so because the programs want to make sure it's a great fit. And so the interview was great. This was a very independent young lady. Everything was good. Didn't need really any help on independent living in the dorm. Okay, great. So they started noticing that this young lady's hair just looked worse and worse and worse by the moment, practically. And so after about 10 days, and they were asking, are you washing your hair? Oh, yes, you know, are you taking a shower? I mean, because that's what it's about, right? There are trained RAs there. There are staff there. Everyone's, you know, checking on these students. And so finally, long story short, they found out that what was happening was this young lady, when she took her shower at home, she would hold her hand out of the bathroom, and her mom would put a dollop of shampoo in, and then she'd hold her hand out and a dollop of conditioner in. And her mom would make sure that she was washing her hair and washing out the conditioner. So what was happening is this young lady had never learned how to take care of her hair independently, because there was that little bit of coaching that was always there outside the bathroom. Now that seems like a small thing, but you guys, you know, in college, your peers are going to be going, what the heck, you know, with this hair thing, you know, and that affects how folks are making decisions about this student. And so, like I said, personal hygiene, you may think your student's really independent. Really think about it in terms of, are they really independent? You know, reading and math, functional basics is important. So again, that goes right back into the IEP. Function independently for sustained a period of time. What that means is these programs do not have 24/7 on hands engagement. Okay, so these students have to be safe overnight. They have to be safe, you know, on the weekends when there's not programming, you know, so just think about that. Severe behavior, emotional problems, that's part of it. How does your student handle change? And if they don't handle change well now, we'll work towards getting some strategies in place to help them handle change, because college life is one big change. You know, they've got classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, but guess what? Professors send emails and say, hey, you know what? We're going to meet over here today. Or, hey, I'm canceling class today. We're going to have it, you know, Thursday night. So change is part of it. So how to handle that change is so important. And strategies to be in place to be able to handle change before it happens is really helpful. Can they take direction and be an employee? You know, just the basics of that. Maybe some volunteer work would be very helpful. If they have dietary restrictions or allergies, can they manage that? Again, excuse me. Does that student know they have a red dye allergy and can't eat a bag of red M&Ms, you know? Do they know that they have a dairy allergy and they can't have ice cream, you know, unless it's dairy free? Can they do those types of things, you know? Have your students start staying away, go to camp, stay at a grandparent's, you know, stay at a friend's. If that's a possibility, start looking at those overnight opportunities. So you don't have a student that has been in your house and hardly ever left and then is living in a dorm. That's really difficult. And so think in terms of that sort of slow process on, okay, kind of a quick checklist. This is a quick checklist, you know, just some basic things. And this sounds kind of strange, but we'll ask for help when needed. You know, oftentimes as parents, and I'm speaking as one, we know our kids so well that we step in. We know when they need help, even when they don't. And so starting to think outside the box on, does my kid need help? And can they ask for that? And maybe having the situation they're in be something they stay in. If they have a problem with getting in the house one day, or they have a problem, they broke something, or they have a problem, you know, with anything, you know, can they ask for help? So let them, coach them, help them to be able to ask for help, because that is something that they're going to have to learn, and they will learn it. They will have advocacy help in the college program, but just the basics of being able to know when they're not feeling well, you know, are they able to identify, I don't feel good. Now, they don't have to know that they have a fever. They don't have to know that they have strep throat. They don't have to know the medical stuff, but they do need to be able to say, I don't feel good. You know, can I talk to someone about that? because those are just little steps that just help the college experience being away from home kind of be much smoother. I want to tell this story because this is still the best story I have ever heard about how these programs are very successful. And I'm going to wrap up with this, but there is a director that's a dear friend of mine now at College of Charleston, actually, and they've run for almost 15 years. So they're an amazing program. And she was giving me an example of sort of an all around how these programs really make a difference in a kid's life. And so she said, I want to tell you something. She said, we had a student happened to be on the autism spectrum, some other stuff going on as well. As far as diagnosis goes, but he had done really well, and so he was in his senior year. He was doing his off-campus senior internship. He had wanted this dream job of working in a graphic design field, and he got that job and started the job. And about a week later, I got a call from his supervisor, and the supervisor said, hey, we're having trouble with your student. And she said, okay, well, first of all, he is your employee. He's not my student, not in this case, but go ahead. And so he told her that this student was going up to every pretty girl and repetitively asking for them to go out with him. And he would not take no for an answer. He was not getting the social cues, right? And he said, I just don't know what to do with him. He doesn't get it. And she said, well, what would you do with anyone? He goes, well, I would talk to him. She said, okay, talk to him, because he was so worried that he was a program student and not his employee. And so he called her back in a couple of days. He said, okay, I talked to him. It didn't matter. And she said, look, I'm going to make this easy for you. Tell me what your HR process is about an employee that is having challenging behaviors. And so he went through the whole thing, writing up the employee, talking to HR, probation, all those things. And she said, you know what, understand that you are paying him. He is your employee. And so I want you to follow that exact thing. And he said, well, what if it doesn't go well? And she said, if it doesn't go well, it doesn't go well. She said, we will start working with him here, obviously, but he is your employee. And so I want you to just follow your usual track. And so he did. And so compressed time over about 3 months. And he called and said, it's not working. She said, well, so what would you do? And he said, well, I would let him go. But I can't let him go. He's your student. She goes, no, he's your employee. Let him go. But do me a favor. Just let me know when you're going to do it, because I will be in my office, because that's where he's going to come. And he said, okay. So he let her know. She was in her office, had cleared her schedule. And she said, about 15 minutes after I knew when this was going to happen, he hit my door. And she said, I don't know if you've ever seen a full-on autism spectrum meltdown, but that's what we had from a senior in college. And she said, you know what? That was okay. I just let him do his thing. And then when he was able to talk, we started talking. And at that time, that was the very first meeting I'd ever had with this lady. And she said, I don't know you, but she said, I will tell you, after 12 years in special education, most parents would have baked him some brownies and said, honey, it's just one job. That's okay. There'll be others. And she said, I don't know if that's you, but I will tell you that most of my parents would have done that. And she said, I will tell you that we absolutely did not do that. She said, we were able finally to get through to him that his behavior is what caused this. And we built a unit around that behavior. And we did all these things with him. And we were doing them at the same time they were going on. But she said he could not learn it until it really cost him something. And she said, I call this dignity of risk. And that's a term that I love and I've held on to, because it is dignity of risk to allow these students to fail, because they are failing in a situation that they have the supports in place, right? And she said, I will tell you that we hardcore worked on him He was able to get another job in another graphic arts firm, and we did not have that problem again. And so I thought that was a great story. All right, so we'll go forward about 6 years, because again, I've known her a long time now. And I said, I always tell that story because it's such a great story about how the programs work and how the students can fail, but the programs are there to help them. And it's really not failure, it's learning what to do. And I said, whatever happened to him? Because I said, if you're going to tell me that he went home and is on a couch, that's going to really break my heart and kill my story. But I said, I need to know. And she said, no. She goes, he works for Disney now in Florida. And she said, I'm still in touch with all of my students. He is doing great. And that's what it's all about. It's about figuring out that person-centered plan, what they want to do. But then if they're a stumble along the way, to help them get back up and learn and grow. And so I like to close with that story because it's such a great story about, it's not just about everything being rosy, guys. It's about struggles and growing and learning. And I will guarantee you that all the directors of the programs in Oklahoma have a similar story. I need to get those so I can tell an Oklahoma story. But anyway, that is my presentation. And I would love to entertain questions. If you have them, you can go to our website, and there's a place that you can put in your information. We send a quarterly newsletter. You can get on that address, send it in, and it's automatically put into our batch list, and to keep you up with what's going on in the programs and in Oklahoma. And I will tell you that we're all about expanding these options. We're all about community college options and tech centers, and we have been in talk with both. And so it's not just about, oh, look, we've got these 4 programs and that great. It's about Oklahoma needs more choices. Okay, I'll tell you, we have 70 some odd colleges, universities, community colleges, and tech centers. How many programs do we have for the students with IDD? 4. That's not enough. So we're working on it, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate this share. Thank you so much.